Hello, this is Lloyd Albritton. Thanks for dropping in and joining me here on my YouTube podcast. Usually I try to keep these podcasts on a lighter note. At least I've tried to do that until now. And there has been such an interesting news story has cropped up that against the best advice of all my family and my friends and all my best advisors to do not get involved in this. It just has troubled me day and night. And so, since I do have this little Lloyd's commentary program on my YouTube podcast, by golly, I'm going to use it. Now, I can promise you that if you listen to it and if you share it or talk with anybody else about it, that you're not going to be arrested. And you won't be taken to trial or anything because, well, there's just no reason for you to be. And so feel free to spread this link or this podcast, which is on YouTube. Feel free to spread it around because it's already been spread around. In fact, it's in the newspaper. Here's a copy of the Atmore News. You've all probably seen this. It has appeared in the Atmore News in several editions, different phases of the news, different developments, if you will. It's also appeared in the national news. This has been in the Washington Post, I believe the New York Times, and in a number of regional different newspapers. And I've even read it on MSN on the internet. So it's all over the place. And even people have gotten involved in this on a national level in terms of opposing sides. Anyway, let me just get right into it, and I'm going to read some of this to you. Okay, I'm going to read some of this to you because there's a lot of it, and it may get just a little bit boring to you, but I want to make sure that we have it all in. We're going to talk about it a little bit as we go along, but there's so many different pieces of it, and it's such a convoluted story. I think you'll find it entertaining, but we'll try to keep it entertaining as well as informational. Now, this thing starts off here. This is a news story by the Atmore News, published by the Atmore News. News publisher Sherry Digman, and news reporter over there, a fellow by the name of Don Fletcher. He's her news reporter. Now, you should know this. For those of you who live in Atmore, who will mostly be the ones watching this, I'm sure, you know about all of the political and geographical layout of Atmore. Atmore is located about 50 miles which way? Northeast of Mobile, Alabama. And again, it's about the same distance, about 50 miles north of Pensacola, Florida, the two largest towns that people would be interested in. The city limits of Atmore is the Florida state line. So as you go south toward Pensacola, you'll just when you run through the city limits, you run right into the state of Florida. So it sits right on the Alabama-Florida state line. Now, sitting about 30 miles, which way? I have trouble with my directions. East is Brewton, Alabama. Now, Brewton is the county seat of Escambia County. And for those of you who might be out of town and not know this, it's just a little background. There are two Escambia counties. When you cross the state line over into Florida over here, it adjoins with Escambia County, Florida. So there's an Escambia County, Florida, which is more populated and larger, with its county seat in Pensacola, a fairly large town. And then you have Escambia County, Alabama, with its county seat in Brewton, Alabama. And so you have your county politics involved here between Brewton, mostly Brewton and Atmore. When you go west and go into Baldwin County and Bay Minette and all that area down there, that's all Baldwin County. So in terms of politics, your political groups are per county. And so we have a GOP group who meets alternating. Some months they meet once a month. Some months they'll meet in Atmore, and some months they'll meet in Brewton. But Brewton, because it's the county seat, seems to have long been dominant in our politics. That's just my opinion. I think most people would kind of see it that way, that the Brewton people have had more interest in the way the politics go in this county. Now, as many of you know, Escambia County, Alabama, county seat in Brewton, has long been a Democratic-controlled county. If you ran Republican, you weren't going to get anything in Escambia County for many years, as far as since I was born up to the 50s and 60s and 70s. Somewhere along the line, I think around 2000 or maybe in the 90s, this all started to change with Ronald Reagan. And now it's just the opposite. I think we have one a public official in the county who is who's a Democrat, and that would be Mr. Albritton, who is the probate judge. His mother was in the job for many, many years, and she was a Democrat, and so Albritton's a pretty good guy, but the Lord will forgive him for being a Democrat, I'm sure. But he's the only Democrat that I know of. All your county commissioners and everybody, they were old school Democrats, but gradually they've just, one by one, they're all come over to be Republicans so that they could get elected into office, after they all pretty much got voted out. And so the story here takes place. This has to do with the Escambia County School Board. Now, I introduced politics because I'm going to suggest that politics is playing a mighty big role in this story. Let's see. This story is dated on October the I think it's the 8th or 18th. It's dated the 18th. And the story is published in the Atmore News. Now, I should tell you this also. This little history is going to come into play as I talk about this. Atmore News is a locally owned newspaper owned by one Miss Sherry Digman. And there's also, she's been in business maybe 25 or 30 years. Sherry also publishes, in addition to the Atmore weekly newspaper, she also publishes a monthly magazine called it's just called Atmore. And it's a slick 4-color magazine, laid out very nice, very popular. She's been publishing that for, I don't know, quite a few years, probably almost as long as the newspaper. And it's very popular, very well supported in Atmore. And so this is an article. I'll read this to you. This is a picture here on the cover. This is from the internet version. This is a picture of Mr. Steve Billy. Okay, Mr. Steve Billy. Okay, there you go. I hope you saw that. He is the Escambia County District Attorney. Has been in the office, I don't know how long, quite a while. In any event, this is a story about a school board meeting that took place on October the 12th. And this school board meeting on October the 12th, the agenda had to do with a vote on whether to extend the contract of the current school superintendent, a Miss Michelle McClurg. Okay, she has been the superintendent since 2021, and her current contract is scheduled to run out in April of 2024, next year. All right. And so this vote had been, I've been reading in the news bits and pieces, but I wasn't following the story all that closely, but it kept being delayed. Now, it was scheduled to be voted on earlier, but for reasons which we'll talk about in a minute, it wasn't. But here it is. Here they've come up now, and they're scheduled for the meeting. So you've got all your board members are at the meeting. I'll name those in a minute, but there were 7 of them. There are 7 Board of Education members who, handle school board matters and vote on school board. But in this meeting, as they showed up for the vote, there were a bunch more people involved. Now, I'll read the story to you, and let's see if we can decipher who these were. News staff writer Don Fletcher wrote this. Words of support from 2 elected officials, a preacher, a former elected official, along with a show of support from 3 other current and former elected officials were not enough to sway the convictions and votes of 4 Escambia County Board of Education members during the October 12th meeting. Okay, now let me just make sure I clarify as I go along. All right, so you have 7 members. Here are the 7 members on the board. These are the 7 members that do the voting. You have the president of the, and I'll finish the column in a minute. Bear with me. All right, this is a little difficult. You got the president of the board, which is Mr. Danny Benjamin. He is head over District 2. Okay. Danny's been a member of the board for about 35 years. Then you have Mr. Mike Edwards. I think Danny Benjamin is probably from Bruton. I don't know him, but I think he's from Bruton. And then you have Mike Edwards, who's from Bruton. I know Mike from the GOP committee. I was previously on the committee. I am not any longer, but I know Mike. He's a really nice guy. Mike Edwards he's over District 3. Then you have Kevin Hooms, Hoomes. I don't know Kevin. I'm assuming he must be also from Bruton. Cindy Jackson, also from Bruton area. She's over District 4. Kevin's over District 1. Lumeek White, District 5. Now, I don't know Lumeek White. In fact, I don't know whether that's a male or female. Sorry, Lumeek. I'm not sure about your name. And then, lastly, you have Miss Sherry Digman. Whoa-ho! Miss Sherry Digman, who is over District 6 of the school board. Now, I don't know how long Sherry's been in there, a few years. She was voted in, I can tell you that. But Sherry Digman. So you had 7 people, and so they had the vote that night, and the vote, I'll tell you now, it'll probably be in what I'm going to read you as well. You ended up with 4 of those: Danny Benjamin, Mike Edwards, did I say Coleman Wallace? I know Coleman Wallace. He lives here in Atmore, and Coleman is a Republican, and all of these are Republicans, as far as I know. But Coleman Wallace, he's a friend of mine, and he's District 7. So you had 3 of them. Danny Benjamin, Mike Edwards, Coleman Wallace, 3 of them voted to extend the superintendent's contract. All right, past next April. That's when it would end. They voted to extend that and give her permanent status. The other 4, Kevin Holmes, Cindy Jackson, Lumeek White, and Sherry Digman, they voted no. Okay. Now, that being said, those were the 4 that were at the meeting. All right, I'm going to stop a minute and explain that, but let me continue with my reading. All right, the 4 districts, District 1's Kevin Holmes, District 4, Cindy Jackson, District 5, Lumeek White, District 6, Sherry Digman, those 4 held steadfast in their earlier stances. So they had made known their intent. So when everybody came to this meeting, they knew how the vote was going to go, right? So there were 4 of them. They knew were going to vote no. Or they had held steadfast in their early stances and prevailed over the board. Let's see. What am I doing wrong here? In their early stances and prevailed over. They prevailed over Board President Danny Benjamin, District 2, District 3's Mike Edwards, District 7 Coleman Wallace, in a vote that will bring Superintendent of Education Michelle McClurg's local tenure to an end next April. Okay, to continue. Prior to the vote, Atmore Pastor Willie Hawthorne, District Attorney Steve Billy, former Flompton Mayor Dewey Bondurant, and State Senator Greg Albritton, who's an Atmore resident, each stood up and spoke on McClung's behalf. All right, so I think that should have been 5 of them. Okay, so this is what they said. These 4, there were some others there, and I'll tell you who they were. In fact, let me give that to you right now. These are the public figures who were there. You had Miss Dale Ash. Miss Ash is from Atmore, and she is a partner in the Pepsi distributorship for, I don't know how big a region, Bruton, all of this region. And a very influential family in Atmore. There's a lot of goodwill for the city and stuff like that. So, she's on bank boards. She's a VIP, business person, not elected official from Atmore. Miss Dale Ash was there. Reverend Willie Hawthorne. Reverend Hawthorne is the pastor of the Greater Mount Triumph Baptist Church here in Atmore, okay, located over in the black community, and he's a very popular minister over there. I think Willie probably sings good, and sort of like Jimmy Swaggart. He can do it all, but he's very popular over there, and not just as a minister, but as a political figure. All right, because the black population typically, they kind of mix their politics and religion a little bit, and so Willie is an influential political as well as spiritual figure in the black community. Okay, then you had D.A. Steve Billy, who we'll talk about in a minute. Dewey Bondurant, the former mayor. Dewey's father was a business in the timber business over in Flompton, and he inherited the business. And Dewey's he is a influential figure in the area of Flompton, Alabama, and in the region. Okay, so Dewey, he's not that old. He's probably about my age. He's in his 70s, I would think. So Dewey, he went over there to speak. He's not in office anymore, but he's still somebody to reckon with. Then you had Senator Greg Albritton. Greg is my brother. He's a pretty influential guy. He's in the state senate, and he's over the state. I'm not sure what the title is. The state budget. He's over the money. Okay, the committee, but pretty influential with the purse strings of the state of Alabama. Right. Well, Greg was there. Mayor Jim Staff was over there. From here in Atmore. Webb Nall. He's a friend of mine. I know Webb very well. He's basically a representative of Dale Ash and Pepsi. Webb is on the city council here in Atmore, has been for many years, and I'm just going to suggest that there might be a reason why you can't buy anything but a Pepsi in Atmore, especially at festivals and such as that. But pretty much any restaurant, privately owned restaurant in Atmore or Baldwin County or anywhere in this region, Pepsi's very strong. And Dale is, although she's not a figure in politics, obviously wields a little bit of influence there. Because here we have Webb Nall at the meeting. Webb's an old guy like me. Webb's probably older than me, probably in his 80s. Then you got a fellow named Jim Johnson, who is the current mayor of Flompton. I don't know Jim Johnson. Now, we have a Jim Johnson in Atmore, who is also a very influential businessman and bank director, board of director, and so forth. But that's a different one. This is Jim Johnson from Flompton. And then, didn't name him, but I'm going to assume that Sheriff Heath Jackson. Heath's a friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years. He's the sheriff based out of Bruton. And the reason I know Heath was there, because I'm going to read you in a minute, they had a little brouhaha went on over there that apparently got a little heated, and the sheriff had to stand up and bring things back to order. Okay. All right. Now that's that. Let me finish with my reading here. I'm not going to try to speed this up because I want you to bring it all together. It's a real struggle to, because people, I've been talking to a lot of people, and everybody has a little different version and little different pieces. They're basing their opinion on this piece or that piece, but not the whole story. So here we go. Let's see, Pastor. Okay, prior to the vote, we're going back. Prior to the vote, Atmore Pastor Willie Hawthorne, District Attorney Steve Billy, former Flumpton Mayor Dewey Bondurant, and State Senator Greg Albritton, an Atmore resident, each spoke on McClung's behalf. Now here we go. This is the first time in a long time. Now this is, I think this is Steve Billy. No, this is Hawthorne, Reverend Hawthorne. This is the first time in a long time that we've had anybody to reach out to the community of Atmore, Hawthorne said. I've sat back and seen things go on, and it seemed like nothing was happening in Atmore. All of a sudden, it seems like things are changing. Rome wasn't built in a day, Hawthorne said. It's going to take time, but we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I think we should keep walking down that tunnel. Boy, he was just getting wound up here. When let's see the next one here, the district attorney. The district attorney chastised board members who might vote against the contract renewal even before a vote was taken. Now, the district attorney chastised those who might be. Now, they knew exactly who the four were. Of course they did. But and so I wasn't there, but I'm assuming that he looked them in the eye, which he's done many times in court. The district attorney chastised board members who might vote against the contract renewal before a vote was taken, insinuating that each who might vote no was violating his oath of office. Now here's the county DA chastising the school board members and telling them that, insinuating, I guess you'd have to be here, but I'm going to play this for you. I have it on tape. I pulled this right off of news media. I didn't get it from any kind of secret informant or anything. Somebody apparently recorded the DA when he made his little speech, and it was on the internet, and I pulled it off, and I'll play it for you here in a minute. Okay. All right. Bondurant, who also pointed fingers before an actual vote, Bondurant, who pointed fingers before an actual vote had been made, said he didn't understand how anyone could vote against McClurg. He also asserted that the town of Flumpton, they have called me. Okay, he says the town of Flumpton, I guess the whole town called him, or a bunch of them did. The town of Flumpton, they have called me, and they support Miss McClung. And so Dewey says that he just don't understand how anybody could see anything any different than him. Now, who is Dewey Bondurant? He's nobody. He's a former mayor of a little one-horse town called Flumpton. Now, pardon me for you Flumpton residents. I know you love it over there, and it's a great little town, but it's a little one-horse town. Dewey Bondurant has a little business over there, and he's nobody, all right? But he's over here lecturing the board, all right? Now, here's the Albritton, okay, Senator Albritton. Now, he's my brother, all right? He's a wonderful guy, and I love him, and so forth. He's a good Republican, too. Doing a good job up there in the Senate. Well, somehow or another here, Senator Albritton has gotten caught up in this school board thing here. And so Senator Albritton brought more than words. Senator Albritton brought more than words, presenting McClung with a check for $72,172.72. Wow, I don't know where they got that figure. Anyway, the state senator said that the amount of the annual check is roughly 3 times the amount it usually is. because of the progress and advancements of Escambia County School has made under McClung's leadership. Now, I don't know how many of you have been in the schools. Let me just take a second. I keep hearing about this, about how our schools here in Atmore are improving. And for many years, off and on, I have had the opportunity to substitute teach in the school, sometimes for extended periods of time, in the high school, in the middle school. Hey, it's been pretty wild out there up until, I don't know, here just a year or two ago. I was invited to not come out there anymore because I was getting too many parent complaints because it was like the Wild West out there. There was no discipline whatsoever. And so anyway, I wasn't fired. They just quit calling me. That's all. So anyway, I kind of miss. I don't know what she's done in the last year or two, but it would have to be nothing less than a miracle if there's any improvement. And like Miss Sherry Digman quoted, she had talked to other employees and teachers. I know a lot of employees and teachers, and I've talked to a lot of them as well, and I haven't heard too much great to say about these great improvements that I'm hearing about from Reverend Hawthorne, who's an older guy my age. I don't think he has any kids in school. I don't know if any of these people have any kids in the school. I don't know where they're hearing this stuff. In any event, let me just press on here. What you call it? Divert. Okay. Greg Albritton, he says, "You have my support." That's what he told us. You have my support. So okay, so Greg handed her out. There's another article that says the normal amount that Greg hands out from the state board money, going to the school board, about $10,000 to $20,000, but $72,000, which he presented to McClung that night. So that's a pretty good show of support from our state senator. All right, so got to take that in consideration. He said, "You have my support." As a prelude to the board's vote, Benjamin heaped another helping of praise on the county school chief. "She's done an extraordinary job," Benjamin said. He's the president. And she plans to do an even better job, he said. That's just how she rolls. That's just how she rolls. She plans on doing a better job. The 4-3 roll call vote to not renew McClung's contract brought vocal protests from the BOE members. Vocal protests who voted in favor of extending the contract. Okay, that's 3. There's officially 7 people in the room. 4 of them just voted no, but the 3 that lost, it says they brought vocal protests. Okay, let's see. He said, as well as from others in the crowded room. Oh, okay, not just from the 3, but seems like there was all right. The 4-3 roll call vote to not renew McClung's contract brought vocal protests from the BOE members who voted in favor of extending the contract, as well as from others in the crowded meeting room. Now, there are lots of others who I'm not naming here, obviously. They all went into rebellion mode. What a travesty, said Benjamin, the president of the board, shaking his head in disbelief after a moment of dead silence. They just couldn't believe it. It was a moment of dead silence. They couldn't believe that after all these VIP testimonies and so forth, they just couldn't believe the vote went that way. What a travesty, he said. Let's see. We would rather see our children go back to the failing status. We would rather see our children go back to the failing status rather than achieve an A status in all our high schools. What a travesty. I'm not sure that made sense to you. Let me read it one more time. We would rather see our children go back to the failing status rather than achieve an A status in all our high schools. What a travesty. Flomaton Fire Chief Steve Stanton expressed his anger. Steve Stanton, there's another one, Flomaton Fire Chief. He expressed his anger as he left the crowded meeting room, saying, "I know I ain't supposed to speak, but this is the most ridiculous thing that it's ever been done in this county." Steve Stanton, he's shaking his head. "I know I ain't supposed to speak, but this is the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened." McClung, who was hired in 2021, promised that she would continue to work until her current contract expires to better the system. She also expressed pride in the program that she and her staff have made in improving the schools. Okay, she was very gracious there. Okay, sounds like a very nice lady. Okay, is to know. All right, this is what else she said. She says, "I was raised to know that it's the right thing to do to leave a place in better condition than you found it." This is Superintendent McClurg. "I assure the board, as well as our community, that I will work diligently through the remainder of my contract to continue and make improvements. The next superintendent will find the place in better condition than I found it." Okay, well, that's very graceful. I don't know this lady, never met her, but that sounds like a gracious response. Now, Mike Edwards, board member, then spoke up, venting his I-R-E, his anger, in case you don't know what ire means. He then spoke up, venting his ire over the contract not being renewed. "For the first time in 12 years, I'm ashamed of being on this board," said Mike Edwards, "and I'm ashamed of the members who voted. I'm ashamed of the members who voted no, because, as Mr. Billy said, they gave their oath to do the best for the children." That's what he said before speaking directly to Digman. He said this, then he turned directly to Digman, and he said, "I remember you standing in front of a podium in Atmore and saying that if you think this is best for our children, then we need some new members to replace you four." Wait a minute. That didn't make any sense. "I remember you standing in front of a podium in Atmore and saying that." Okay. He said, "I remember you saying that we need to do what's best for the children." And then he says directly to her, "If you think this is best for our children, then we need new members to replace you four." Now, we just had to vote here, supposedly an orderly citizens board meeting, and here's one of the members of the board pointing his finger directly at the four that disagreed with him, and he is advocating for replacement. Okay. Digman replied here. She replied that she voted for the system's teachers and other employees, none of whom, she said, had expressed satisfaction with the way the schools were being run. This is what Digman's response was. That she replied that she voted for the system's teachers and other employees, none of which had expressed satisfaction with the way the school's been run. I second that. I haven't heard any teachers at all, anywhere, talk about how great school systems run. So I have a tendency to believe her on that. "I have not had one employee get in touch with me and say, 'Gee, I wish y'all would change your vote.' Everybody has said we need new leadership." The District 6 representative said, "Ms. McClung is one of the smartest people I have ever served with. I will give her that. I just think the leadership, as far as our employees in our schools who are teaching our kids, the leadership needs to change." Well, there you go. That's District 6. That's her opinion. Now, I don't know she told us a little bit that she hadn't got good reports, and this was her opinion. She could be lying. I don't know. but she is the District 6 representative that we, the people, voted in that office. We didn't vote these other people into that board, so I'm wondering what they're doing there. Okay? Coleman Wallace took his turn then, echoing the sentiments expressed by Benjamin and Edwards. She'd done a good job. We ought to keep her on. Echoing those sentiments. I think this is Wallace continuing with Coleman Wallace. I think it's a disgrace for people to take an oath of office and then say that the leader of the group is not doing a satisfactory job, the District 7 rep said. Let me just read that again. I'm not sure anybody could actually say that. I think it's a disgrace for people to take an oath of office and then say that the leader of the group is not doing a good job. It's a disgrace if you say that the leader's not doing a good job. Okay. This is the best work I have seen in the 12 years that I've been on the board. This is the best leader we've ever had. We will never reach the integrity that's needed to support our children under the present personnel on the board. I'm ashamed to be a part of it. Well, I know Coleman, and he's a pretty level-headed guy, and that's his opinion, and I think he voted. Coleman got his vote, okay? I don't know whether I agree with him or whether I agree with Miss Sherry. I just don't know. I do know that they're board members, and they're the only ones in that room that should have been there voting. Bondurant then stood and tried to explain additional comments, defying a request from BOE attorney Kirk Garrett to not interrupt the meeting. So the Board of Education attorney tried to prevent Dewey from speaking again, and Dewey said, Dewey, you already had your chance to speak. This is what Garrett said. To which the former Flomaton mayor replied, that doesn't matter. I'm going to speak anyway. The county sheriff had to step in and restore calm. Looks like he's had his hands full. Dewey Bondurant can be kind of a pistol from everything I've ever seen of him. I think he's probably hot-headed, maybe. Looks like it anyway. Also attending the meeting in a show of support for McClurg was Atmore Mayor Jim Staff, Atmore District Councilman Webb Nall, and Flomaton Mayor Jim Johnson. Escambia County Republican Executive Committee Chair Jackie Gay, and an observer from the Atmore State Department of Education were also on hand but neither one of those spoke. Okay, I don't know who that was. No timetable was offered for beginning the search for a new superintendent. In other business, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they went on and then and took care of some other business. Well, good for them. Looks like they got some business done that night. All right. Now, here's another Atmore news. The next one, this one came out on October the 25th. Okay? This, again, is written by Don Fletcher. Please stay with me. There's more. I'm bringing all these articles together. I had to research this for you to get it all together so you'd have all the facts, just the facts, ma'am. Escambia County District Attorney Steve Billy confirmed during the county's school board October 12th meeting that his office is conducting a criminal investigation into some aspect of the Escambia County Board of Education handling of federal COVID money. Now, this is another story on the same meeting. All right, October the 12th. That was the day they had to vote. All right, that was the meeting that Steve Billy was at. But here's a little bit more about that. All right. Don Fletcher, news staff writer, he says that Billy confirmed during the meeting November the 12th that Billy confirmed that he had launched an investigation, a grand jury investigation, into the misuse of some COVID money that's been going on. The district attorney issued the confirmation during his remarks in support of Superintendent of Education Michelle McClurg prior to the board's 4-3 vote not to extend McClung's contract. Here's what Billy says. He said, "I would normally not get involved with things of this nature as far as an employment situation, but we discussed everything in a meeting recently. Some other meeting where they were discussing school board business here, recently, that people in the communities have been hearing things from not all the board members, but some board members. Things about Miss McClung, vicious personal attacks, things that she had done that she was going to be indicted by a grand jury." Billy defended the outgoing superintendent by calling the possibility of a contract non-renewal Washington politics brought to Escambia County, Alabama. He then confirmed that his office is not looking into some alleged improprieties regarding the money paid to seven individuals, including former Assistant Superintendent Sandra Reed, and former CSFO. I'm not sure what CS stands for. FO is Financial Officer. Julie Madden, those two, for additional duties that they perform as a result of the administration, formulation, and implementation of ESSR funding. ESSR, I'm just assuming that is some kind of COVID fund, during the 4 years in question. Now, this is what Billy said. "I don't control much in Escambia County, Alabama," the DA said, "but I do control the grand jury of this county, and I can tell you this, this lady right here," if I was saying that, I'd say right here. I don't know exactly how he said it, "I can tell you that this lady right here, McClung, is not going to be brought before a grand jury because there's nothing to bring before a grand jury." He added that there are some other matters that will be brought before a grand jury that I'm not at liberty to discuss because by law, that's a secret investigation. Okay. Now, that speech right there, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to do an insert. And I have a copy of that speech, as I told you earlier. So I have Billy. I didn't see him make it. I do know Steve. I've met him. I've talked to him. It sounds like him. I believe it is him, to the best of my knowledge. So I want you to hear his actual words as he said this, and then we'll come back.
We discussed at a meeting recently that people in communities have been hearing things from not all the board members, that things about Ms. McClung, things of vicious personal attacks, and things that she had done that she was going to be indicted by a grand jury. In fact, they had an audit set out to find something that lasted about 6 months. They didn't find anything. I've talked to the auditors myself. They found nothing. So, like I previously said, that's Washington politics brought to Escambia County, Alabama. I don't control much in Escambia County, Alabama, but I do control a grand jury of this county. And I can tell you, this lady right here is not going to be brought before a grand jury because there's nothing to bring before a grand jury. But there's some other matters that will be brought before a grand jury that I'm not at liberty to discuss because those are secrecy. By law, that's a secret investigation. It disturbs me, though, that we would have public officials that would be out telling something that is just not so. And I've got statements and affidavits from people stating what was told to them. And I've sent a letter to each one of you board members And I hope you got it. If you didn't, I'll get you a copy. And I hope you read it. I hope you didn't just put it in the shredder. And I meant every word I said it. And I've worked with superintendents before. And what I'll say about Ms. McClung, one thing about it, she doesn't have an agenda. She loves children. Children are first. That's when before making decisions, that's what she does. Consider the interest of the children. There's been progress, been improvement under her leadership. She's got ethical conduct. I've gotten to know her that well. She wants to do the right thing and hold people accountable. She wants transparency. And then look at her ability, what she's brought to the table and what's been accomplished in just a short time. Now, you going to throw that to the curb? And also in my letter, I stated that your oath of office you took. Did you take that lightly? You look under Alabama Code 16.1-41.1. Look at your duties as a board member. Look at that. That's what you took an oath of office to uphold. And I look under the section D, and under A, B, and C, that each decision, action, and vote taken or made as a board member of a local board of education shall be based solely on the needs and interests of students or the system. Are you people that are voting, one more look, voting no, is that what your interest is? I don't think so. B, that no decision, action, or vote shall be taken or made to serve or promote the personal, political, or pecuniary interests of the member. And that each decision, action, and vote shall be based on the interests of the school system as a whole. Is that what you're voting for? As Reverend Hawthorne said, you keep changing horses in the middle of the stream. Are you undoing the progress of the being? What did you take an oath of office to do? So, my recommendation is District Attorney, my history in working with Ms. Sloan is a New York contract.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Thank you.
Okay, to continue with the DA's little speech at the BOE meeting, according to documents obtained by Atmore News, according to documents obtained by Atmore News, a subpoena was issued by Billy that served September the 19th upon current Chief School Financial Officer Rochelle Richardson and or Ashley Four, who I think was the one that was actually arrested, the system's payroll and insurance bookkeeper. The subpoena demanded certified copies of any and all checks written to employees and labeled. These are checks that are written to any employees and labeled COVID payments or COVID bonus for the fiscal years 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. According to the subpoena, the documents were required for the purpose of the furtherance of an investigation/prosecution into a criminal matter. The supplemental pay in question totals $5,300 a month and was granted on a year-by-year basis according to a schedule approved in August of 2021 by the former superintendent of education, John Knott. After the October 12th meeting if he could shed any more light on the investigation. The district attorney replied, it'll come out soon enough. That's what he replied. It'll come out soon enough. Now, that's according to the paper. But, let's see. Now, as I'm finding the next piece to this puzzle, apparently Billy says he didn't say that. He didn't say any of that at all. And that this information, these documents that the Atmore News has uncovered and gotten, obviously sounds like it's the checks that were written, the COVID checks that were written to 7 teachers. Hey, this is all part of a secret grand jury investigation. And "What are you doing publishing this in the newspaper? My Lord, I'm going to arrest you." So he goes to the grand jury and gets a warrant to arrest Sherry, the owner of the newspaper, the reporter himself, Don Fletcher, the lady who apparently gave her the information, for releasing secret grand jury information. Okay. Now let me just insert here a second. Let's see, what was the date of this? This was November the 2nd, and this was... Oh, okay, there's another part to that, to the other part. Okay, so the DA says, y'all are revealing grand jury secrets. You can't do that. It's against the law, and I'm arresting you. And so that's what he did. Now, boy, that's a surprise to me. I didn't know that. He quoted a piece in the article. Maybe I'll read it here in a minute. But I didn't know that. I thought you had to be on the grand jury. As far as I know, Sherry was not on the grand jury, and neither was the news reporter. In fact, it seems to me, according to the gospel of it seems to me, that's what newspapers do. Newspapers research stuff. Now, historically, small-town newspapers basically just regurgitate what the government feeds them. But in this case, hey, sounds good. A newspaper reporter finally got out there and dug for some news. And now the DA thinks that they're divulging secret news. Well, if nobody was on the grand jury, why is it a secret? Can the DA actually declare anything to do with the grand jury case a secret? If he had a leaker in the grand jury, why, he needs to get his investigators out there and find out who it was and arrest them, certainly. You're not supposed to do that. But you can't handcuff a newspaper and tell them that they can't dig for the information. Okay? That's my opinion. Okay. Anyway, he arrested him. And so there was another piece here. I'm going to have to read this to get it straight, because otherwise somebody will say, well, Lloyd rambles around so much, he's probably making half of that up. I'm reading this directly from the paper. Everything I know about this, I got from the paper. Didn't get it from any grand jury, people, so Steve, don't come over here arresting me. I didn't get anything from the grand jury, and I wasn't on the grand jury. This is written again by Don Fletcher. He says, if anyone doubted that District Attorney Steve Billy was upset over the Escambia County Board of Education's recent 4-3 vote to bring Michelle McClung's tenure as a school superintendent, well, that's a mouthful, to an end, when her current contract expires, those doubts were erased Monday, October 23rd. County sheriff's deputies, armed with search warrants, spread out across the county and seized, or were in the process of seizing, the cell phones of the 4 members who voted against renewal of McClung's contract. Various sources confirmed reports that cell phones owned by Atmore News co-owner and publisher Sherry Digman, who holds the District 6 seat on the school board, and District 4's Cindy Jackson were confiscated their phones. So what's this about? Reports from a source close to the investigation were that deputies were also seeking or had already seized phones owned by District 1's Kevin Holmes and District 5's Lumique White. The source, this is the newspaper confidential informant. She's not telling us who it is, but it'll probably come out, as D.A. Billy said. It'll all come out. The source, who spoke under a guarantee of anonymity, said the DA planned to change each of the 4, said the DA planned to charge each of the 4 with violating the provisions of Alabama's open meetings law. The foursome allegedly acted in concert to absent themselves from a September 28th meeting at which McClung's contract was to be discussed. Okay, you got that? Earlier, September 28th, there was a meeting that they had planned to talk about McClung's contract. And these 4 conspired over their telephones, this is Billy's charge, not to attend that meeting. They were going to play hooky. They were going to play sick, which apparently they did. So they couldn't make any decision about the matter. The meeting was canceled due to a lack of a quorum. Billy reportedly aims to prove to a grand jury, is what he aims to do, that Holmes, Jackson, White, and Digman, whose name is misspelled for her warrant, this is what Sherry put in there, little spite there. They misspelled her name when they give her warrant. Hurt her feelings a little bit. That this charge is that they met by telephone and agreed to not attend the board session, September 28th. All right, they met over telephone and made a pact that they wouldn't attend. They'd stall this thing. That's what Billy says anyway. All right. Alabama law prohibits such conference calls or meetings by a quorum of board members unless public notification is given at least 24 hours in advance. Okay, they could have given a 24-hour notice and not attended the meeting, but this was against the law. According to the search warrants, the 4 BOE members had their phones confiscated because each of the cellular devices constitutes evidence of a criminal offense under state law. However, according to several online sources, I'm assuming these online sources were researched by, Atmore News, naturally. Violation of the open meetings law was a criminal statute under the old open meetings law, but was reclassified as a civil matter when the law was changed in 2015. So the law was changed in 2015. According to the newspaper, he's citing an older law. It's been changed. Under the most recent version of the law, each member of the governmental body found to have violated the law, this is like conspiring to, not have a meeting, can be assessed a penalty of up to $1,000 as a civil matter, not a criminal matter, a matter of $1,000 or 1/2 of his or her monthly salary for service. I don't know how much a school board member gets. I think around $600-700, maybe $1,000. I don't know. It used to be like $600 a few years ago. The law also requires that if a violation is proven, the court must issue a minimum penalty of $1. Neither Digman nor Jackson would comment on the phone seizure when contacted by Atmore News, while White and Holmes did not respond to requests for comment. So we don't have any verification of that. Allegedly, according to this news story, I guess more will unfold about that as far as the DA seizing these telephones. I don't know that he's filed any former grand jury charges on that. I guess we classify that as a rumor. Okay, this is not too long, but let me read this to you. This is entitled "No Secrets." This is an Atmore News paper, November the 2nd. This came out. It says Atmore News publisher and co-owner Sherry Digman and Atmore News reporter Don Fletcher both arrested last Friday, along with a bookkeeper. We talked about that. Along with a bookkeeper for the county school system, for revealing grand jury secrets, were ordered Monday to refrain from publishing future stories about criminal and civil matters that might come before a grand jury, specifically those regarding the Escambia County Board of Education. In an initial appearance held Monday, October the 30th, before the district judge Eric Cole, Digman and Fletcher signed statements acknowledging that, as a condition of their bonds, $10,000 bond on each one, both would in the future have no communications about ongoing criminal investigations, including schools and other matters. Cole verbally added, until they are public record. Now, I can tell you something personally about this public record. You could go 100 years and it never be in the public record. All right, this is a little scam that the local government has used in a number of other cases where you cannot get public information. It's an Open Records Act. It's a federal law. It's a state law. But local governments have found a way to stall in order to keep from giving the open record. So until they are a public record, they can juxtapose that any way they want to, and it'll be, you and I probably in our graves before it'll be made public record. In any event, that's a hoax. I'm pretty sure that's my opinion. All right, the journalists were arrested under the provision of Alabama Criminal Code Section 1216-216, which says this: grand juror, witnesses, and so on, prohibited from revealing, disclosing, and so on, from nature and so on, of physical evidence or questions, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I can't make any sense of that. By any means to obtain information as physical evidence, except as to state prosecutions. It's lawyer talk. I don't understand any of that. The charges stem from articles published in Atmore's October 25th edition. Fletcher was taken into custody, and Digman was taken into custody while she was visiting a friend at the hospital. Let's see. Veronica Ashley was taken into custody, who was one of the school board's members. Okay. All right. That's about all the media there is in that. So now the DA has obtained from the grand jury a subpoena to restrict, to gag, basically, the defendants from saying anything about this. They can't talk to you and me about it. They can't publish they publish whatever they're going to publish because they've gagged them now. The Judge Cole has says, you're gagged. You can't talk about this anymore. Hey, but we can. We can release and we can slip it out to other newspapers or whatever, what we want to, but you can't defend yourself. Now, it sounds a little bit like what's going on with our former President Trump, doesn't it? Okay? Sounds like a deck stacked against you. Okay? I guess they can do this. I don't really know. I'm not a lawyer. But I did go to school in my brother's place one day, and we studied a little arithmetic that day. And what I learned was that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And it's always that way. If you add 2 plus 2, it always equals 4. And so I know enough arithmetic to add up the numbers and see that there's something funky going on here. That this is smacks of political influence. I also studied a little bit of psychology, and after a working career of almost 50 years in sales, I understand people a little bit, and I've studied a little bit of psychology, and I've taught psychology in the local community, and so I know a little enough about people to know when somebody's lying, and there's a little bit of lying going on here by somebody. Okay, now and then finally, here's a picture here of Sherry coming down the steps of the courthouse with her attorney, Ernie White. Ernie's a prominent Flomaton lawyer. Looks like, I wonder, Ernie's, he's probably a little bit younger than I am. I wonder if he's dyeing his hair. Anyway, this is a story published November the 8th, okay? When District Attorney Steve Billy bragged during the October 12th meeting of the county school board that he doesn't control much, but does control the grand jury of this county, a lot of people took it as an idle boast. Now they don't. The county grand jury continued to serve as the DA's weapon of choice. Last week, in his legal assault on Atmore News publisher and co-owner Sherry Digman, the county's top prosecutor delivered the second and third blows of a 1-2-3 punch by arresting Sherry Digman, 72, who represents the District 6 on the Escambia County Board of Education, for the second time in less than a week. Then serving notice 2 days later that he aims to have her removed from office. The latest legal move by the district attorney, issuance of a, quote, this is what it's called a report and information of impeachment and prayer of removal from office. Boy, it had to take a government bureaucrat to come up with that name, didn't it? It was served on the local journalist Friday, November the 3rd. The three-count document was issued by the grand jury and signed by Billy. Count 1 of the report charges willful neglect of office. Count 2 charges corruption in office. And Count 3 charges that the BOE member committed a crime of moral turpitude. The website of Cornell University's Legal Information Institute, it looks like Sherry did a little research here, includes that in a legal sense, the term moral turpitude, it looks like she took a little umbrage at that, moral turpitude is used to describe wicked, deviant behavior constituting an immoral, unethical, or unjust departure from ordinary social standards, such that it would shock a community. According to the impeachment report, Digman, one of the BOE members who voted against the renewal of Superintendent of Education McClung's contract, has committed willful acts of misconduct and or corruption, and that she should be impeached and removed from office. At the October 12th BOE meeting, Digman explained her vote against McClung by saying it was based primarily on numerous concerns voiced by educators and other school system employees over McClung's management of the system. The grand jury report includes that the BOE member's explanation clearly reflects her lack of concern for the children. That's what it says. It says the grand jury report, Steve Billy, includes this statement that the BOE member's explanation, and her explanation was that she had been influenced by employees and teachers. He says that clearly reflects her lack of concern for the children. The report concludes, it is our opinion that her conduct affects the dignity of the office and her ability to effectively discharge her duties for the benefit and the best interest of the students of the school system as a whole, and she should therefore be impeached and removed from office. Punch 2. The second attack on Digman came when the grand jury handed up a 2-count indictment charging her with an ethics violation that arose from advertisements purchased by the school board for a publication of which Digman is a part owner. Okay, she owns the newspaper. They all knew that when they voted for her, the people. She was indicted for violating her oath of office by soliciting advertisements from the school board or school system for special occasion ads, such as those in back-to-school ads, football, graduation, and other supplemental sections. Such ads have been placed by the board in all or most local newspapers as a general practice for years. The grand jury report claims the newspaper owner turned against the school superintendent when McClung brought her concerns over the payments to the district attorney. Aha! So, McClung, who went into office in 2021, somewhere along there did a little inquiry, and she discovered that the school board had bought some ads from Sherry. totaling some more over $2,500, which I believe that figure comes from, whatever it takes to make a felony. So they're filing this as a felony charge. Now, never mind that the school board has for years done the same thing with all the newspapers. Sherry should have stood up, according to the district attorney, and protested when they voted on buying this ad and said, well, wait a minute, I own the paper and I can't sell you this ad. All right, I'm not sure about all of that. If the school board voted to buy the ad, unless they overpaid her under the table or something other than the fair market value of that ad, her magazine has, the magazine itself. It's the only one of its kind, and Atmore, Bruton, or around. It's a nice magazine. It's very popular. And if the school board wants to buy an ad in it, I don't understand really why they wouldn't let them do that. But nevertheless, Sherry should have protested more, and that makes her a bad person. The grand jury and the DA declared that McClung has previously questioned the payments on Digman's business, and that Digman turned against McClung because she questioned these payments. So that's when, according, that's the reason. That's the real reason why. This is what DA says. It's not because Sherry heard from other employees and teachers. No, the real reason is because McClung caught her with her hand in the toe, taking ad money. Okay, and so that's why Sherry turned against her and voted as a member. Okay. However, according to a story published in the November 2nd edition of the Tri-City Ledger, the DA said, this is what the DA told the Tri-City Ledger, that the indictment had nothing to do with the recent vote to not renew McClung's contract. Billy reportedly told the Flomaton newspaper that the legal action was the result of a probe that had been ongoing investigation long before the vote on McClung's contract was up for renewal. The Atmore news publisher, accompanied by Bruton attorney Ernie White, surrendered in the county sheriff, and he put a $100,000 bond on her for this one. $100,000 bond. They're trying to impeach her. Okay, let's go ahead and let me try to wind this up. First of all, if there's anything illegal about all this, I don't understand how you can take a community full of VIPs can crash a important school board voting meeting and protest and point fingers and threaten and intimidate the board members on how to vote. And as soon as they voted contrary to what these protesters wanted, then the DA, who was one of the protesters, indicts them. And here's bam, bam, bam. I mean, there's a case to be tried here that's, right now it's being tried in the press. It looks like the national media has caught up with this, and Sherry may have some political and financial support from the larger Bureau of Press agencies and so forth. But long story short, I'm not seeing it. This is just smacks of politics. Now, one of my friends called me and suggested this is that GOP, the GOP group from. But no, look, I can look at the names here. I can tell you who the GOP are. Well, I won't tell you who they are, but I'll tell you there's not more than one. I don't see more than one. Now, Senator Albritton, obviously, he's on the GOP. He's a Republican senator, and of course, Dale's not on the GOP as far as I know. She might be, a Republican, but that doesn't mean she's on the committee. Neither is Dewey Bondurant. Neither is Steve Billy. Neither is Willie Hawthorne. He's certainly not a Republican, not on the committee. Webnall, he's not on the committee. Jim Johnson, no. None of these people, I don't see the GOP committee being behind this. I see this as being more of a community thing, and for some reason or other, it's a personal thing. Now, whether Sherry Digman is guilty or not of these ethical violations, I question that highly. I've known Sherry for probably 30, 40, 50 years, and I haven't always agreed with her in her news stories or her analysis of things, but I've certainly not found her to be anyone of moral turpitude. I've always found her to be a highly conscientious person, and that would be my opinion of her personally. So I think they're kind of crossing the line here. Now, I question that Sherry should have ever run for the school board or have accepted a school board position. I think she was asked to fill the school board at one point, but for other reasons. Certainly not a thing to do with her personal integrity. But the fact is, the people have elected her to office. And when we elect people to these offices, that's what we elected them to do. We didn't put this under the control of the government for the DA to come down there and threaten and cajole and indict people. When's the DA going to decide he doesn't like the way the county commission voted? Or when's he going to come down to the First Baptist Church, to their committee, and decide he doesn't like something they voted for? This is the strong arm of the law. This is a weaponization of government. And I'm against it. And what I've tried to lay out here for you, perhaps very awkwardly and lengthy, I'll try to edit some of this out, but I wanted you to have it straight from where I got it, so you wouldn't think that I'm making all this up. And I do have some opinions which I've expressed to you. I hope that as a citizen of this county, or as an interested in this issue, I hope you'll take the time to get involved and write about this and let people know what you think. If Sherry Digman is the bad guy, then by all means, let's put her in prison and, maybe, beat her, tie her to a post or something really bad. Let's punish her. But if it turns out that DA Steve Billy is using the long arm of the law to weaponize the government in order to go after somebody, then I think we ought to remember that at least come election time and get him out of there. This cannot be tolerated, and I think it's a little bit bigger than Steve Billy. There's a reason why all these people showed up at a school board meeting at one time. It ain't right. This is Lloyd Albritton, and this is my opinion.